Good morning. All right, so yesterday we got what we anticipated, a relatively narrow range day, but they bought the dip on the gap down. Looking at the cues here, gap down to support, a little congestion area. You have to jiggling around a little bit. It rallied up and looks we'll see what happens today. There's a nice consolidation. So when we look at a daily bar, right? Part of what we need to look at is the structure intraday, and meaning, was it going up into the end of the day? Was it going sideways? I'm looking at a bullish bar, and we got a nice sideways consolidation here, and bottoming tail bar at the end of the day. So show some confidence for it to go higher. Looking at where it's within the range. Things are unchanged here. Lots of inflation data tomorrow and Friday, and earnings reports from financials. But yesterday bullish price action. We'll see how much it follows through. Looking at the cues here, there's this unfilled gap just ahead. If buyers step up again, so we'll see if it gets up there somewhere between here. That unfilled gap, which is, of course, it's always an area. Whether it gets up to the pivot high, give or take. 410 would be a big level just as a whole number if it was able to get up there. Um, and we'll see. So far, nice move coming up off of that low down there, and resistance is pretty close. So probably the upside and downside relatively limited today. I don't think anybody's going to get too aggressive in front of that data. And spiders obviously showed a little relative weakness, even though they're up on the day. It didn't clear the high. It was the inside day, which is typically what happens after a wide range bar day. Historically, and after doing this for many, many, many years, you see this over and over again. And that's just the typical. Doesn't happen every single time, but more times than not, wide range bar like this is followed by a consolidation day. And that's what happened. And buyers held on to the gain at the end of the day. That's positive. Now, if there wasn't any news coming out in the next 2 days, you'd look at this and say, okay, here's what we call a 1, 2, 3 being trade above that high and look for it to go higher. Now, maybe those in the know, the data is going to be good, or just speculate it's going to be good. I don't care. But if it takes that high out, it should go up. But of course, up to where? Well, you figure it's going to stall at the prior high. And, could it make a new all-time high? Which you can see it's not that far off within striking distance. I don't know. That 480 level was pretty tough. I think more or less we're going to chop around here in the bullish scenario. Forgetting the data is going to be a sideways consolidation, but we'll see. We always see that after the fact, how it unfolds. But so far, last week's red bar, and it's Wednesday, morning. Will it be a red bar ignored at the end of the week, which would be positive, or does this turn into a topping tail, or just an inside bar? So we're just typed into the green room here that just looking at some patterns, and one in particular that is trading under a reversal pattern under the low, suggesting a measured move lower. So there are things that are starting to look a little more bearish, um, confirming some of the things that came down with vertical drops. And of course, when they come down like that, even though the drop is vertical, they come down to support after a strong uptrend, and they have a high tendency to bounce. And we see some of these things starting to fail. It's called Alex's shit pattern. Okay, Alex, you named it your own thing. It's fine, but you know, some of these things you don't know when it's going to happen, and that's the frustrating part about trading, is that you see patterns. You don't want to overthink them too much, but the market environment does have an effect on the reliability of price patterns. And that's why we look at into market analysis and market internals, what the market environment is, because at certain times, there are patterns that could be, your bread and butter. And then in a different market environment, they just become a nightmare. So you never really know 100%. So what can you do? Well, at certain times where that there's some uncertainty about things, you just trade smaller size, you know, because we just don't know exactly. I mean, I see certain patterns that it's like, oh, look at the way that came down. I don't remember which ones, but I see them coming down vertically, and I see them going up like, you know, they weren't sold so aggressively. And anyway, it's just part of you're never gonna get around that level of uncertainty, and that's why we say we're just playing the odds. So what we can control is our risk with share sizing. Right, SPX things have probably moved a little bit since I looked at those levels, but this is pretty tight, and it's been tight because the range has tightened up, and it's up to you. I mean, I think picking intraday, which we did yesterday in the room at certain points, which was right up here. And once this broke out, and if you're looking at the NYSE tick, there was a tick extreme there, and it flips right back down again with a breakout failure with a range expansion bar. And that is a black and white, clear pattern saying a short-term top is in. So while you may not, and probably would not, short that, even though it went down as it did, you have to respect the strength that it went up. But credit spreads are a vehicle that says, hey, I just don't think this instrument is going to go to a certain level in a certain amount of time. And so the positive with SPX credit spreads is that, first of all, they have most of the time a premium that you can get far enough away. So yesterday, someone in the room was a bit more aggressive with 770, 775 was what I thought was a no-brainer. But in any event, you see a pattern like that and looking at this and saying, you know what, in the short term, this ain't going up. And that's just a probability thing. Of course, anything can happen. But when you see something like this, so there's a tick extreme with a pattern like that, and thinking, hey, and then over the next few hours, is this thing less likely to go up? And it's like, yes. Credit spread. And it's the same thing with credit spreads on stocks, where look, intraday, the majority of time, unless it's an earnings report, and a pattern like that, you don't get enough premium. Whereas this, you do, but you better have a pretty good method of picking the spots, because if you're wrong, it's this is going to hurt because of the the leverage and how fast it can move. So knowing part of the things that we look for: breakout failures, tick extremes, wide range bar reversals, not being too piggy. You can say, oh, let me do at that point the 65s, and you can get some big juice. And if you're wrong, you're going to get slapped around pretty good. So the thing is, you can get a reasonable distance away with these, and why they're an attractive instrument. All right, other things, transports, they were weaker. They didn't follow through. And this is the kind of pattern, again, with news coming out, there's that risk that, hey, the market loves the news and you get a whipsaw. But patterns like this have a higher tendency when you get this type of reversal that's violated the uptrend, where maybe you could have went up and tagged the 20 or a little more, and they fail. If it breaks below these lows, they have a high tendency to move down to the next support level, or what we refer to as a measured move, when the buy setup fails. So, excluding the news, trading under this low would suggest a move down to this major support level. So we'll see how that unfolds in the next couple of days. Interest rates kind of flopping around here, not really doing too much ahead of the news. We talked about this minor resistance level, about this major support level. And so the markets are waiting for that news in the next couple of days to see where we're going to go. And so a retest after a deep retracement like this, a retest pattern, again, just looking at historical patterns and thinking what could possibly set up with a move like this, meaning the downside, unless there's some shocking news in the next couple of days, the downside should be limited. Common sense. It's already fallen from way up here all the way down here to support. But what if it retests this? What if the news tomorrow is positive and interest rates go down, the market rallies, they come up to all-time highs, and bullish sentiment that is already at an extreme, still working that off, flips back up, and this makes a W bottom. That's a scenario for some pretty bearish market environment to come. But right now, we just don't know. Everything is kind of in limbo, waiting for this news and, getting into 2024. So just, keep it in mind that we just don't have high probability things going on here at the moment. SMHs, they led the way down. They had a nice bounce. They're not doing too much of anything this morning. And they came into this unfilled gap here. And so I guess technically it didn't actually fill the gap since it got to the close. But, when they get close enough like this and they're coming off of a low, you got to be thinking about being a seller or lightening up based on patterns like that. So that's not going anywhere. Russell was weaker yesterday, not a big deal, but, an inside day. Was a little lower. It didn't travel in the top part of the wide range bar. So you want to keep an eye on this, set an alert down below that wide range bar is low, up above the high. Again, kind of in the middle of nowhere here, seeing which way things will go. Interest rates we looked at. We can look at the futures. I mean, it's going to be the same everywhere. Just traders are just waiting. Institutions are waiting now. It was buy the dip yesterday, go up to resistance, a short-term trade. Let's see what happens. Can it take out the high? So there's these 1, 2, 3 patterns out there, but it is what it is. And we'll see. We're going to need more data to see how this unfolds, today and into the end of the week. The Dow, is it consolidating bullishly, or is it some kind of muted head and shoulders top? And when I say muted is because the head isn't that high above where it looks like here's an obvious new high failure and deep retracement. So again, another pattern that, while extended on the weekly, which we've talked about, isn't doing much of anything here, but we're going to see, if these things like head and shoulder type patterns start breaking through the necklines, if we see the pullback patterns that had reversals in the last day. So let's say AMAT, which didn't do much of anything, that couldn't get going. This is one I was looking for that could follow through. It didn't. Versus LRCX, another semiconductor. Would that have some follow through? So that hit the 20 and was an inside day yesterday. So will it be a 1, 2, 3 higher? You see SMH getting into the gap fill. This didn't. So this showed relative weakness. But we all know, the 800-pound gorilla, NVIDIA, making new all-time highs. So, different stocks, relative strength, relative weakness. And, as far as, the bearish point of view on the market internals, interest rates, so on and so forth, I think this is one instrument that will tell part of the tale, meaning, does this stay above this base or does this turn into a breakout failure? Because if this fails, a bullish move like that, institutions, short-term traders, that's going to just raise the level of uncertainty. And if that 10-year turns into a W or just starts moving up, so the reason I'm pointing this out is you can't rely on one piece of information as far as market timing goes. Um, at turning points, you look for a consensus of information that increases the probability of being right, and that's all we can do. So I see such a bullish pattern where this consolidated for several months and breaking out. I mean, this thing should go much higher. So if it fails at this point, it's bearish, bearish price action, black and white. All right. Same story here. All right. Just looking at the futures. There's not much of anything happening here this morning. Bitcoin, I don't know this is a continuous contract. I don't know what's going on here. Something with e-signal, maybe. It's got this big gap on the intraday here, but this thing's all over the place. I don't know exactly where this is, but this news now with this hack of the news yesterday. Now at the ZTF, is it going to happen or not? Well, there's speculation about it. So, Bitcoin coin. Now here's do that. Kind of what I'm talking about with these deep retracements. They look like they can bounce. There was a bottoming tail bar. And, now, as yesterday, it reverses back down again. And what is it doing here today? It's down a little bit. So these are the kind of moves where it's like, okay, does it hold this low? Or if this breaks this low, does this turn into a measured move lower, which would put this maybe somewhere down here, give or take? So that, there's a lot of these patterns out there that, daily reversal failures historically have a high tendency to be failures, and continuation moves down when you have weekly charts that look like this. So the great thing about this is that if it unfolds that way, is that this is going to look really nasty in the coming weeks if it follows through lower, but the weekly charts are going to look good, which is going to create a great opportunity maybe in a month or so. We'll see. So, right now, again, nothing much is going on. Gold, silver is not doing anything. Oil, it's up a little bit, but again, all these charts are messed up. Not much of anything going on. So that's the short answer to 20 minutes of talking. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, looking at the Dow 30 Home Depot is up the most, 250 or so, but no great pattern. Talking about Bitcoin and the hack and all that. I actually watched a Bitcoin movie on Netflix, or I forget where. Center, I don't know, we'll talk about it later, but anyway, they gave an interesting stat at the end of the movie. They said that over the last 5 years, these startups have raised $5 billion, and they said 78% were fraud. I mean, think of that. And these people tout, oh, security, we don't need banks. So, I don't know, it's a big discussion. But when CNBC was showing the 4 or 5 coins on the TV this morning, what jumped out at me was 4 out of 5 of them were negative and Ether was up. So me being the contrarian I immediately looked at the chart of Ether. And so why why is this one rocking on that bad news? And I'm guessing part of the reason is, you know, whenever the market gets something in their head, they're just going to play that theme until ad nausea, until it ends. But my guess is they're now banking on this one being the next one to get their ETF, although there's one already right here, ETHG. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it. Well, just create the charts. But yeah, that coin is a little bear flag now. Counter trend retracement after, it's not in the downtrend. But yeah, 30-minute low. That's a call spread idea. Couple earnings here. Ether 18. That's a big gap down. We'll come back to it. Itwell, $4 stock, gapping up to 430. Oh, today MT Live, we're talking about gaps. So, that's what I focus on a lot. Tier 1 trades and gappers. So, we'll be doing this, as always, roughly 45 minutes of education, slides, and then we'll be answering questions. Gap trades. So 430, what do I do with this? It's a bullish gap, without a doubt. Gapping over a red bar, breakdown failure. Do I have a big enough reward to risk? Because my target's the prior high. I don't know. We'll come back to you. 21 bucks. Now, this one's borderline. Gap's too big for me. I love gaps that gap just over resistance, then have a big void. So if this were gapping a 1950, I would like it a whole lot more to buy 30-minute high. WD40, that's a big old, bull rectangle on the weekly. I see one print up here, 253, but I don't trust it, but it's bullish. Daily, weekly, monthly. We'll come back to it. There's a few more down here. ISRG, I think, was just some guidance. Bullish, but no pattern. Yeah, well, we looked at SGH. We've looked at. All right, so that's it for earnings. AZZ, I think, had some guidance too. Okay, so see now this one, 59.10, it's gapping over this prior high, but it's extended. So this one's a candidate to get a controlled pullback, a buy setup over the next 3 days. All right, now I'm just on the miscellaneous stuff. Disney here. Wide range closing breakdown. This would be a good 1, 2, 3. If we get an inside bar today. DCGO, I just saw this one going by the ticker when Greg was talking. That's Doc Go. Never heard of him. I can only assume he's a cousin of Daku. I don't know. But that looks horrible. PHM. Yeah, I think they announced they're going to increase the dividend. So that, it's no great pattern. It's right here, but Aichi, if it can go sideways a couple days, then we have an inverse head and shoulders. So let's see what it does with the market. Schwab, I had on my list yesterday, and now it's gap breakdown, 65, 66. Okay, so here's a good gap trade. Here's a nice one. It's gapping just under this. I got a price void. The bearish daily after gapping or green bar. It's not gapping too much. So I have it in the bottom right here. let's see how it sets up in the first 30 minutes. That's a beautiful gap trade. ALC is a gap breakout. And this is an ADR. You see all the gaps. Gap's too big, but this is one to watch a buy setup. If it can pull back here to the breakout, minor support with a buy setup, that'd be a perfect entry. Fatai. Oh, Fatai, we're already in, but I had an up alarm going off. But I don't see any prints. Met C we're in. Sam, no, I think I actually gave us this one. I remember it clear as day. We did it when this was a 1, 2, 3. So we're in trail mode. My up alarm went off. Nice, beautiful trade there. AZZ, I said we talk about 80, 90, gaps too big. XPER, I posted, Sam, this is on your list. I posted this as a 4 long. 1, 2, 3 daily. Wide range breakout weekly. Look at the monthly. Now, you know, it's going to have trouble here. It's going to have trouble here. But look at the monthly. Here was a double bottom. And now it made a new low reversal. So it's like a double bottom with a new low plus. So who knows? This might go to 16, 18, $20. I don't know. No idea. All right, TJX alarm. I had posted this. This was a 1, 2, 3 following a bear sandwich. Look at this ugly red bar engulfed by 2 big green bars. All right, I've got a couple of alarms going off here. All right, Met C coming in hard, but I tightened the stop pre-market. So just let that play out. Bluffs alarm, Sam, that's yours. That's triggering. I posted that oh shit, is this a bio life? No, I checked. Yeah, medical instruments. All right. Yeah, I checked. This word scared me right there. Bio life. Yeah, so bluffs. Let's do a 5-minute high on bluffs. I don't, you know. Direct. Oh, wow, look at Met C coming in hard. So just take the stop if it hits. Yeah, this is a bicep.